Hey guys, tonight we slip into the shadows of another time, where plague creeps behind doors and torches flicker over cobblestones slick with secrets. And you've just arrived in the year 1400. You're not a noble or a knight. You're just awake. Just another soul in a city that doesn't sleep, because death doesn't either. A door slams. You flinch. That sound cuts through the alley like a blade, sharp, final, and too loud for comfort. The torchlight above you hiccups in the wind, casting warped shadows down the crooked brick. You don't know who closed the door or what they were hiding, but you can guess. Everyone's hiding something tonight. You pull your cloak tighter. Paris is a maze of scents right now. Smoke from cooking fires, the metallic tang of dried blood, something musty, almost furry. That's not your imagination. That's real. You look down just in time to see 3 black rats slither past your boots, tails trailing like spilled ink. This isn't your city anymore. It's theirs. If this sleepy scroll through the past brought you peace, a like and a sub would mean a lot. No strings attached, unsubscribe anytime. Also, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Always fun to see how far the fog spreads. Now, close your eyes if you like. Let the story wrap around you like candlelight and old wool. We're slipping further in now. Just follow the squeak. You trudge slowly down the cobbled alley, lantern swinging at your side. It's late, maybe midnight, but the city is far from quiet. Voices murmur behind shutters. A baby cries. Someone vomits into the gutter a few steps ahead. The smell of last week's fish, this morning's waste, and tonight's fear all mix into one unholy perfume that no nose, rich or poor, escapes. You stop when you hear the coughing. Deep, wet, rasping. The kind that rattles in the lungs like a death knell. It's coming from the window above you. There's a flash of candlelight through the cracks in the shutters, then darkness again. A prayer whispered, or maybe a curse. Nobody says the word yet. Not openly, but everyone feels it crawling in the air, under skin, behind the eyes. The sickness, the great one. The one that doesn't care if you're a noble sipping wine or a beggar sleeping in hay. You hear the city hold its breath every time someone sneezes. It's not the first time this shadow has crept in, but this time feels different, colder, bolder. And beneath it all, padding softly on tiny claws, the rats move. You spot one now. Slick black fur, whiskers twitching. It stops just beyond the reach of your lantern and stares at you like it knows something you don't. Then it vanishes into a crack in the wall as if summoned by some silent whistle. Rats aren't feared yet, not officially. But you see them more now, in places they shouldn't be. At church, one nibbles a dropped wafer near the altar. In the mayor's office, another perches near the hearth, like a furry little advisor. In the baker's shop, a whole family vanishes behind flour sacks when someone opens the door. You joke about them, call them crumb knights or tail lords. But deep down, you wonder why they seem so comfortable. You pass a wooden post with a note nailed to it. Ink smeared, barely legible. A death notice. Someone important. The ink's still wet. People used to ring bells or make formal announcements. Now it's just scraps of parchment fluttering in the wind, like warnings whispered too late. A street preacher shouts from a barrel near the marketplace, his voice cracking, "Repent, repent, for the hour is upon us." No one listens. Not really. But no one laughs either. They just walk faster. You reach a small courtyard, quiet except for the drip-drip of water from an old stone fountain. You sit for a moment on a worn bench. Someone carved initials into the wood years ago. Lovers? Siblings? Gone now, probably. The wind shifts. You smell smoke. Someone burning old clothes. That's new. And then, a scream. A real one this time. From a few streets over. Not a cry of pain, but the kind you let out when the world changes all at once. When you see something that can't be unseen, you rise but don't run. No one does. You just listen and wait. You're getting used to this now. There are whispers about Genoa, about ships that docked weeks ago and left behind more than just spices, about the boil, a swelling under the arm that turns black, then bursts, about fever and blood and death in under 3 days. But those are just stories, right? Still, you remember a merchant in the tavern yesterday, pale, sweating, rubbing at his neck. He said he had a cold. You haven't seen him since. You rise and walk again, past taverns, now quieter than usual, past homes with red marks on the doors, some kind of warning, but no one agrees on what it means. Some say it's protection. Others, a signal to stay away. Historians still argue whether those markings were officially mandated or just desperate folk art in a world slipping into chaos. In the distance, a church bell tolls, not for mass, for mourning. 1 chime, then 2. You lose count around 12. It keeps going. You stop at the bridge, look down at the river below. There are lights floating in the water, lanterns from boats drifting silently through fog. On one, a body, wrapped in cloth, untouched, unmoored. Rats on the edge of the dock sniff the air. You hear a laugh behind you, a drunken one. A pair of nobles stumble past, perfume failing to mask the scent of old wine. One wears silk, the other velvet. Both wear tiny pouches of herbs and flowers around their necks. They think it will protect them. They paid a fortune for that protection. They look at you like you're the rat. The laugh turns into a cough. You don't say anything. You just keep walking. You pass a healer's hut. A girl sits outside, rocking slowly, eyes glassy. Her mother's inside, she says, sleeping. You know that's not true. You don't say anything to her either. The city's sick, but not just with plague, with fear, with denial, with silence. People act like everything's normal until the sun sets. That's when the truth creeps out, on tiny feet, with twitching noses. And tonight, you realize something. The rats aren't afraid. Not of you, not of death, not even of the dark. They're watching, waiting, thriving. And you can't help but feel it in your bones. Something old is waking up, and it's not human. You wake the next morning to the sound of wood scraping against stone, someone dragging something heavy across the street. You peek through the shutters. A man is hauling a broken table, probably to burn. But what catches your eye isn't the man. It's what's moving underneath him, dozens of them. Rats, bold as brass, tails whipping, claws tapping, weaving between boots and broken wheels like they own the place. One even pauses mid-run to lick its paw. It's not sneaky. It's relaxed. It knows no one will stop it. You open the shutters wider, and the smell hits you. Hard and fast. A swampy blend of rotting onions, last night's wine, horse manure, and something worse. Something sour. The scent of the city waking up. There's a myth about the Middle Ages being just dirt and darkness. But the truth? It's messier. Because you didn't just live with the stink, you lived in it. You walk outside and dodge a splash of gray water tossed from a window above. Could be dishwater. Could be worse. You don't look up. The locals don't shout warnings anymore. They don't care. You step around a pile of straw soaked in something. Maybe ale? Maybe blood? Your foot slips a little, but you catch yourself. Rats scatter from the pile like they were living in it. Probably were. One pauses on top of a boot, still on the foot of a sleeping man. Or maybe he's just not waking up. Hard to tell lately. You head toward the square, past open shutters and crumbling brick. And the further you walk, the clearer the pattern becomes. Every alley, every courtyard, every broken barrel. There they are. Little black and brown shadows, darting, sniffing, clawing. They're not hiding. Not anymore. You reach the baker's stall, or what's left of it. The bread's gone. So's the baker. A child stands behind the counter, pretending to know the prices. A rat clings to the underside of the table, tail swaying gently in the dust. No one notices, or they pretend not to. You ask for a roll. The child hands it to you with hands that haven't been washed in days. You take it anyway. Hunger beats caution. You sit on a step to eat. That's when you really start watching. How they move. How they blend in. The rats aren't skittish anymore. They don't bolt at footsteps. They study them. They know when to move and when to freeze. You wonder if they understand the rhythm of human life. When the crowds flood the market, when the tavern's empty, when the guards change shifts. Maybe they do. Maybe they've always known. You think about how people used to describe rats. Pest, menace, vermin. But in this city, in 1400, there's something else. Citizens, occupants. You see one walk across a church pew like it's looking for its seat. Another dozes beneath a smith's anvil. You even spot one curled inside a widow's shawl as she prays. No one swats it away. And the most unsettling part, you stop being shocked. They're like the fog, always there, always shifting, not enemies, not exactly friends, just there. You visit the barber surgeon because your tooth's been aching for days. You sit on a wooden stool, waiting your turn. A groan echoes from the back room. The man ahead of you has a swollen cheek and blood on his chin. He holds a rag to his face. You wonder if he'll leave with more than just one tooth missing. The barber appears, chewing something. You hope it's mint. He carries a pair of rusted pliers and smiles like that's supposed to comfort you. You point at your tooth. He nods. Then, right before he starts, a rat scurries across the room, up the wall, across a beam, and into a hole above the window. The barber doesn't even flinch. He's used to it. Probably knows the rat by name. You're back on the street half an hour later, tooth gone, bleeding slightly, and clutching a bit of rag. You stop by the apothecary to buy clove oil. The shop smells of herbs and mold. You scan the shelves and see jars labeled with elegant Latin. And then beside them, droppings, neatly arranged, as if the rats are contributing inventory. You try not to laugh. It hurts too much. A child skips past you, carrying a wooden toy, a spinning top carved like a rat. That's new. You remember when toys were knights and dragons. Now they're rodents. You wonder if it's a joke or a prayer. You cut through a back alley on your way home. It's quieter here. You pass a collapsed door frame and hear chewing. Dozens of tiny teeth working through wood. You peer inside and see them, an entire family of rats, huddled together, devouring the remnants of a chair. One stares at you, then another. Soon all of them are watching. You leave quickly. You find a bench near the old fountain again. You sit. The city hums around you. Cartwheels clatter. Someone singing in the distance. A dog barks. And beneath it all, soft scratching. Rats in the drains. Rats in the walls. Rats underfoot. Historians today still debate exactly how numerous the rats were. Some argue that the image of rats overrunning medieval cities is exaggerated, a modern projection. But sitting here, watching one crawl calmly into a sleeping man's sleeve, you doubt that very much. A noble woman walks by, lifting her skirt slightly as she navigates a puddle. A rat scurries past her shoes. She doesn't react. She doesn't even notice. That says everything. You walk home slowly, feet aching, head heavy. You step around a mound of straw that twitches, then squeaks. You realize it's not straw, it's a nest, made from cloth scraps, hay, paper, and bones. Tiny eyes glint from the center, a fresh litter. You don't stop walking, you just mutter, "Welcome to the neighborhood," and keep going. Because here, in this year, on these streets, the rats rule, and everyone else is just trying to stay out of their way. You wake before the bell this time, not because you're rested, but because something brushed your foot. You jolt upright, heart hammering, only to find nothing there, or nothing now. You swear you saw a tail disappear beneath the floorboards. You get dressed slowly. Your boots are damp. You didn't leave them outside. You hold one up to the light, and a single seed falls out. Grain. Strange. Unless something dragged it in overnight. You shake the other, and 3 rat droppings spill onto the floor. You don't scream, you sigh. Welcome to the new normal. You step outside. The sun's still low, and the streets are quieter than usual. Early morning is rat time. They don't all scurry back to their holes before dawn anymore. Some just linger, lounging in broken barrels, twitching their noses like aristocrats enjoying the morning air. You pass a bakery whose door is open just a crack. Inside, on a flour-dusted table, a rat sits upright, nibbling dough like it ordered breakfast. The apprentice is asleep beside the oven. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he does, and just doesn't care. You keep walking, and now your eyes are trained differently. You're not looking for people anymore. You're watching for them. The whiskers and shadows, the flick of tails in lantern light, the gnawed edges of paper signs, once clean, but now delicately shredded like lace. You pause at the square. It's market day. At least it's supposed to be. Half the stalls are empty. The other half are run by children or grandmothers who couldn't afford to stay home. Goods are covered with cloth, not to keep dust out, but rats. You see it happen. One leaps from a beam above, lands on a crate of apples, grabs one in its tiny mouth, and vanishes before the merchant even notices. No one screams. No one even chases it. They just fix the cloth and keep going. You hear someone mutter, "They don't even wait for night anymore." And that's true. There's no shame in their rule now. They've become part of the architecture. You glance at a statue in the square. A knight in marble, sword raised. At his feet, a small, very real rat naps in the shadow. A perfect metaphor. The old power towering above, oblivious to what really runs the show. There's a boy selling eels. He yells louder than anyone. You approach half out of curiosity. His stand is clean, almost suspiciously so. You ask him how he keeps the rats away. He lifts a sack from beneath the table and pulls out a fat gray tomcat. You raise your eyebrows. A cat? In this city. He grins. He's a beast, the boy says proudly. Killed 5 yesterday. You nod, impressed, until you notice the cat's ears are torn. Its eye is swollen shut. You realize it's not so much a predator as a soldier, one barely surviving in a war already lost. You glance across the square and see 2 men arguing near a cart. You catch fragments. Infestation. Wheat ruined. Whole shipment gone. One slaps his thigh in frustration. The other just stares at the ground. A rat sits under the cart wheel, licking its paw like it's eavesdropping. You wander past a butcher's stall. Hooks swing gently in the breeze, heavy with meat. Rats crawl along the rafters above, sniffing, waiting. One loses its grip and lands on a slab of pork. The butcher curses, shoos it off with a knife, then wipes the meat clean and continues selling. You pause. Did you really see that? A woman next to you shrugs. Adds flavor. You almost laugh. Almost. You decide to detour through the side streets, needing air, or quiet, or something. But the side streets are worse. Narrower, darker, tighter. The perfect corridors for the city's true rulers. You step over a pile of rotted cabbages, only to realize they've been burrowed through tiny tunnels like wormholes. You crouch to look closer and spot a family inside. Pink-eyed, gray-bellied. The mother glares at you, then turns her back, like you're the rude one. You walk faster now, past doorways where people sleep, past walls stained with ancient sewage, past a tailor shop with a sign that reads, "Closed, come back next plague." You reach the church. You weren't planning to, but something pulls you there. The doors are open. A funeral is underway, or just finished. A single candle flickers near the altar. A priest drones a Latin chant with half a voice. 3 mourners stand apart, faces veiled. One coughs. You sit in the back, just for a minute. Your body aches. You close your eyes. When you open them again, you see it. A rat walking across the pews. Not scurrying, walking, deliberate, like it's inspecting the woodwork. It hops to the floor, moves up the aisle, stops at the coffin, sniffs once, and walks away. You feel something cold in your stomach. Not fear. Not exactly, just recognition. You walk out without a word. Historians still debate whether rats were really that ubiquitous. Some argue the narrative's exaggerated. Medieval cities were dirty, yes, but not rodent wonderlands. But you, walking these streets, think otherwise. You're living it. The rats aren't just present, they're confident, like they know no one's coming to stop them. You make it home, bolt the door, check your boots again, empty this time. You sit by the window and look out at the twilight city. Chimneys puff smoke, bells ring. A dog howls once, then stops. And down below, in the gutter, a little rat rolls a walnut across the stones, like a prize, like a toy. It stops, looks up at you, and you could swear it winks. You shut the window, but you don't draw the curtain, because you know this isn't ending soon. Not tomorrow, not next year, not until someone starts asking the real question. Not why the rats are here, but how they won. You wake up coughing, not because you're sick, but because the air is thick. There's smoke wafting in through the cracks in your door, wood smoke mostly, but beneath it, rot. You recognize it instantly now. That damp, sweet, sour scent of something that used to be alive. You pull your cloak tighter and step outside. Today the streets feel quieter. Not less busy exactly. People are still out. But there's a tension, like the city's waiting for something, like it's caught between two breaths. And the rats? They're everywhere. You notice it right away. The usual trails of muddy footprints are peppered with claw marks now. The corners of doors chewed clean through. Even the stone steps outside your neighbor's shop have a new jagged bite taken out of them. At first glance, it looks like weathering, but it's not. It's teeth. There's garbage piled in the alleys, meat bones, broken bowls, old cloth stiff with something dark, and on top of it all, lounging like tiny monarchs, are the rats. One lifts its head as you pass and yawns. Another rolls onto its side and scratches lazily at its belly. They're not hiding anymore. Why would they? This is their kingdom now. You reach the butcher shop again. Only today the door's wide open. A woman stands inside, arms folded, arguing with the apprentice. Something about spoiled meat. You see the pile on the floor. It's gray, furry, breathing. A whole nest. In the middle of the shop. You expect the apprentice to panic, to grab a broom or start yelling. But he just shrugs. They come at night, he says. If I throw them out, they come back angrier. You blink. Angrier? He nods, serious. Bit me once, right on the toe. Drew blood. You glance at his foot. It's bandaged. Poorly. They wait, he adds, till it's dark. Then you hear them. The scratching, like 100 little scribes writing letters to the underworld. You back away slowly. There's not much else to say. On your way out, you see the pile of old refuse behind the shop. What you don't expect is to see it moving. Breathing, shifting in waves. And then you realize it's not refuse. It's a mound of rats, sleeping, curled around each other like a living blanket. You feel your stomach turn. You step away fast. You pass a barber's window and see a man getting a boil lanced. The barber works with the precision of a sculptor, muttering about bloodlines and bad humors. A rat scampers across the shelf behind him and dips its nose into a pot of ointment. No one notices. You round the corner to the apothecary. Outside, a sign reads, "Cures for rats and other unpleasant things." You duck inside. It's dim and smells like rosemary and dust. The shelves are crammed with jars, frog legs, dried toads, something that might be powdered bone. The apothecary greets you with a nod and asks if your problem has whiskers or boils. Whiskers, you answer. He sighs and pulls down a jar. Inside is a paste the color of pond sludge. Spread that on bread. Leave it in the corners. Not for them to eat, he says, just to make them think twice. You raise an eyebrow. Does it work? He shrugs. Sometimes. Depends on the rat. Some are clever, others don't care. You hand over a few coins and leave, but the jar feels light. Useless. You already know you're not going to use it. Because part of you wonders if it's too late for poisons and pastes. You wander the alleys again, trying not to step in puddles. At least, you hope they're puddles. A child runs past with a stick. She's chasing a rat, not to kill it, but to hurt it. She laughs as it zigzags between her legs, like a game. You lean against a wall and watch her. When she finally catches it in her hands, she cradles it gently. This one's name is Pip, she says proudly. He follows me home sometimes. You want to say something, warn her, scold her. But she's already vanished around the corner, clutching Pip like a toy. You rub your eyes. Maybe you didn't sleep enough. Maybe this is all normal now. You pass a group of merchants near the well. One is reading from a letter, something about food shortages. Another complains about spoiled grain. The third? He's muttering about a warehouse that collapsed under its own filth. They just chewed through it all, he says. Beams, sacks, rope, the floor itself. You listen, and again, no one suggests a solution. No one even raises their voice. It's just the way things are now. Rot is expected. Gnawing is background noise. A crumbling city under slow siege. You sit on a low wall and stare at the skyline. Rooftops sag, chimneys lean, and in the gaps you spot them. Rats, trotting along tiles, leaping between eaves, watching. You think of them not as scavengers now, but as settlers, builders, colonists of the cracks. They didn't just invade the city, they inherited it. Historians sometimes argue about medieval sanitation. Some claim it wasn't as bad as modern myths suggest, that the Middle Ages weren't just filth and fleas. And maybe that's true in parts. But here, today, you see no debate. You see walls crumbling under grease. You see gutters lined with bones. You see disease walking on 4 feet and whiskers. You head toward the bathhouse, not to bathe. No one really does anymore. Just to sit, to breathe, to remember what clean felt like. Inside, the air is warm and wet. Steam hangs low. A few others sit in silence. One man is humming a hymn. Another reads from a page so wrinkled it might crumble at any second. And then you see it. A rat. Floating. Dead. No. Eyes open. Paddling lazily across the surface of the bath like it owns the place. Like it's on vacation. No one screams. The old man reading glances up, sighs, and says, "Again?" You leave. You take the long way home through the churchyard. Even here they're present, chewing flowers, digging at grave corners. You hear someone mutter a prayer, or maybe a warning. You reach your door. As you fumble with the key, you hear something beneath the step. A soft, slow scrape. You pause, then open the door, step inside, and bolt it tight. You light a candle, sit down, and stare at the flickering wall. You whisper to yourself, "They're not afraid of us anymore." And for the first time, you're not sure you blame them. You can't sleep tonight. Not because of the cold. It's oddly warm even with the fire out. But because of the sound. The scratching. Not constant, just enough. A pause, a scrape, then silence again. It could be the wind against the shutters, but you know better. You sit up in bed and strain to listen. There it is again. A slow drag of claw on wood, somewhere beneath the floor. You picture the beams, old, splintered, soft with rot. You imagine tiny paws scurrying across them, curling into nests made from your fallen hairs and breadcrumbs. You lie back and shut your eyes. Try to block it out. But the scratching continues. You think of the doctor, the one with the bird mask. You saw him once, waddling through the square in that long leather coat, beak glinting in the morning sun like some strange hybrid of man and vulture. Children used to laugh at him. Now they run. You heard he fills the beak with herbs. Lavender, mint, rose petals. Things meant to keep away bad air, or miasma, as they say. But deep down, you know it doesn't help. No one thinks it does. Not anymore. The doctor came to your street 2 days ago. He didn't knock. He just stood outside your neighbor's door for a while, then turned and left. Later that evening, the door was marked with charcoal. A single line. Nothing more. No explanation. Today the door is ajar. The house is empty. You roll out of bed and light a stub of candle. The flame flickers, then steadies. You look around the room. One of your socks is gone. You haven't moved it. And just there, by the hearth, a little trail of dried rice leading toward the wall. You sigh. You're too tired to chase phantoms. You wrap yourself in a cloak and decide to walk. The streets at night are a different kingdom. Lanterns swing in the wind like haunted ships. Curtains flutter and doorways blink open, then closed like they're breathing. And the rats. They thrive in this hour. You round a corner and stop short. A dozen of them, huddled together in a perfect circle. Not moving. Just sitting. Like monks in silent prayer. You take a step closer and one looks up. Then slowly, they all turn to face you. You freeze. They don't move. And for a moment, neither do you. Then a cart creaks in the distance. A wheel squeals. The spell breaks. The rats scatter. You walk faster now. The gutters bubble with rainwater and who knows what else. You step over a puddle and hear a splash behind you. Not from your own step. Something else. Something following. You reach the town square. At night, it feels too big, too hollow. You remember the voices, the stalls, the clatter of metal and cloth. Now it's just shadows and the soft tick of tiny feet on stone. You sit at the base of the statue again. The night above you seems more exhausted than noble tonight. You remember what they used to say? Filth invites plague. But that feels backwards now. Like it's not the filth that caused the sickness, but the sickness that made the filth impossible to clean. You think of the nobles' homes, sealed tight with perfumed cloth and guards at the doors. They're just as sick as the peasants now. Maybe sicker. One guard told you the rats climb the ivy, get in through the windows. They chew through silk the same way they chew through sackcloth. Disease doesn't care about lace. A priest walks past, swinging a censer. The smoke is thin, barely fragrant. He mumbles a prayer as he passes you, eyes fixed ahead. You don't think he sees you. Behind him, a rat follows. Just one, step for step, as if mimicking the procession. You almost laugh. Almost. You rise again and start walking toward the river. The bridge is slick with mist. You stop at the center and lean on the rail. Below, the water moves sluggishly. Dark, thick. There's something floating. Maybe a barrel. Maybe not. You remember the bell. They used to ring it when another body was loaded into the cart. Ding, ding. Slow and solemn. But now it rings constantly. Not for each death. Just on a schedule. There are too many names to name. Too many doors to mark. Too many rats to count. You think about how they came to be here in such numbers. Stowed away on ships, they say. Nibbling grain and nesting in ropes. Black rats from the east. That's the rumor. But others say they were always here. Just waiting. Waiting for people to get too comfortable. Too careless. Historians still argue whether the plague was truly rat-borne. Some claim it was the fleas, the ones that feasted on rat blood and then jumped to humans. Others say it was airborne, that the rats were scapegoats. But tonight, watching them weave between your feet like you're just another bit of street furniture, you wonder, does it matter? Whatever role they played, they're winning now. You head back toward your home. A shutter bangs in the wind. A dog barks once, then goes silent. A door creaks open as you pass, and an old woman leans out. They're in the bread, she whispers. You pause. They got the baby's cradle, too. You nod slowly. She smiles. I feed them sometimes. They leave me be if I do. You don't respond. She closes the door. You reach your stoop and find a rat sitting on the bottom step. It doesn't run. You sit beside it. Neither of you moves. You listen to the city breathe, to the scratching and shuffling, to the quiet groans of stone and wood. And you understand something. They didn't invade. They adapted. They filled the spaces you left behind, the corners you stopped cleaning, the cracks you stopped fixing, the grains you dropped, the care you lost. They're not a plague. They're what comes after. What rises from the rot. The kingdom of filth is not built overnight. It's built one crumb, one cough, one cracked floorboard at a time. And tonight, in the stillness, you realize this isn't their world now. It always was. The bell rings before sunrise this time. Not the morning bell. This one sharper, closer, more frantic. You stumble out of bed, heart pounding. It's coming from the end of the street. A metal triangle clanging again and again, as if someone's forgotten how to stop. You throw on your cloak and step outside. A cart blocks the street. Not one of the plague carts. This one's smaller, more improvised. Just two wheels lashed to a slab of wood. A man kneels beside it, pounding on the side with a stick. Gone. He mutters over and over. All of it. Gone in the night. You peer inside. It's supposed to be full of flour sacks. It's empty. Shredded strings, ragged paper, gnawed rope, and at the very bottom, droppings. Not many. Just enough to make the message clear. They didn't just take the food. They left a calling card. You look around. Other doors are opening. People peer out. Some cross themselves. One boy points. They left a trail, he says, all the way to the river. You follow it. Bits of flour here and there, almost like it's mocking you. Smudged paw prints in the white dust. A path winding through the muddy cobblestones, like breadcrumbs from a nightmare. You reach the riverbank and see it. Half a sack wedged between two rocks, torn open, surrounded by squeaking. Dozens of them. The rats are eating like they haven't eaten in days. Fist-sized, fur-matted, shining-eyed monsters. You don't go closer. You just watch. One turns its head and looks at you. And you swear it grins. You walk away quickly. On your way back, you pass the candle maker's shop. A woman is sweeping the stoop. She's muttering something under her breath, but you catch the words wax thief and godless vermin. You step inside. The shop is dim, lit by the weak morning light, squeezing through stained glass. Shelves hold stumpy candles, thick ones for the church, thin ones for homes. A few lie, broken on the floor. You ask what happened. She points at the wall. The baseboards are chewed clean through. Bits of wax trail off toward the cellar. They don't even eat all of it, she says. They just take it, hoard it, like they're planning for something. You raise an eyebrow. She looks away. I didn't mean it like that. But you both know she did. Because it's not just about food anymore. It's about storage. You step outside and look down a nearby alley. You see one rat struggling to drag a spoon. Not a crumb, not trash. A whole metal spoon. Where is it going? What are they building? You walk on, unsettled. Down another street, you hear a familiar sound. Wheels, bells, wood groaning under weight. A plague cart. You step aside. The driver is gaunt, hollow-eyed. His hands tremble on the reins. Behind him, the cart is half full. Bundled shapes, some still. Some moving. No, not the bodies. The rats. They crawl over the cart like a banquet on wheels. One stands on the shoulder of a dead man, calmly cleaning its face. The driver doesn't bother to shoo them. You wonder when that line was crossed, when death became part of the feast. You pass the square again and see a new sight. A gathering. Not a market, not a sermon. A trial. People stand in a circle, huddled tight. In the center is a stool. On it, something you never thought you'd see. A rat in a tiny wooden cage. Beside it, a man in priest's robes. And next to him, a man holding a scroll. You elbow through the crowd and listen. Accused of consuming sacred wafers, the priest is saying, and of gnawing at the vestments of Father Orlan. The crowd murmurs. The man with the scroll clears his throat. Let the record show, he says, that the defendant did not request counsel. You blink. Are they actually trying this thing? Apparently, yes. The priest continues, asking for witnesses. One elderly woman steps forward and swears she saw the creature crawl into the confessional during Vespers. Another says it bit her rosary beads. The man with the scroll nods and marks something. You expect laughter, but no one's laughing. Not really, because underneath the absurdity is something else, something darker, a desperate attempt to regain control, to declare, we are still in charge. You slip away before the verdict is read. It doesn't matter. You already know the sentence. You wander past the tanner shop and stop short. Something's different. The smell is worse than usual, even for a tannery. You peer inside. The door is open. Hides hang from the rafters like drying ghosts, but there's movement on the floor. You look closer. The rats have built something. A mound, a nest, a structure. Made of rags, bones, scraps of parchment, bits of melted wax. It's not just debris. It's deliberate. You feel your skin crawl. Historians still argue whether medieval rats had social structures. Some claim it's impossible, that they were solitary or chaotic at best. But others believe they formed colonies, hierarchies, even territories. You're starting to believe it too. Because this looks organized. You walk away fast. Your next stop is the tavern. Not for ale, just for warmth. A fire, a place to sit, maybe a face that doesn't twitch at every creak in the wall. Inside, it's crowded. Low voices, tense laughter. Someone plays a lute badly. You sit by the hearth. A rat scurries across the mantel. Someone throws a shoe. It misses. The rat disappears, unbothered. You ask the barkeep if he's seen more of them lately. He snorts. More? They own the place. I pay more in grain losses than in taxes. You ask if anyone's trying to do anything. He shrugs. A few nobles pulled money for traps. Didn't work. The rats figured them out. Learned which ones snapped. He leans in, lowers his voice. They're learning, mate. Watching. Waiting. You believe him. On your way out, you see a sign posted near the door. Reward for large rat heads. You don't laugh. Because some heads are too large. And some are never found. You step into the evening, and the fog is thick now. The city feels smaller, tighter. The buildings loom like leaning tombstones. You pass a door left ajar and hear whispers. Someone chanting. Not in Latin. Something older. You don't stop to ask. You reach home and open the door slowly. Light a candle. Something skitters across the floorboards. You don't bother chasing it. You just sit down. And whisper to no one in particular. They're planning something. You don't know if it's true, but deep down, you're starting to hope it is. Because otherwise, this is just the beginning. You sleep with one eye open now. You've started stuffing rags under the door at night, not for the cold, for them. You know it doesn't really work, but it feels like doing something. And right now, doing something is better than doing nothing. The scratching's quieter tonight. That's worse somehow. The silence is not relief. It's strategy. You lie still listening. Nothing. Too quiet. When the first bell of dawn rings, you dress quickly and step outside. The air is heavy again. Not with smoke this time, but a low, clinging damp. The kind that makes wood swell and bread sour. You glance at the gutters. Water pools thick as soup. Something slick floats by. It has whiskers. You don't look too long. You head toward the physician's quarter. You've heard rumors of new treatments. Not cures exactly, but attempts. You're not sick, not yet, but lately that feels more like chance than choice. You arrive to find a small line already formed outside the door. Inside, the doctor works under dim light. Not the beaked kind. This one looks like he believes in logic. His coat is stained, but his hands are steady. You ask what he's giving people. He shrugs. Treacle, crushed emerald, leeches, depending on the patient. You ask if it works. He looks you dead in the eye. No. There's silence. Then he adds, but it's what they expect. You thank him and turn to leave, but he stops you. Wait, do you live near the old tannery? You nod slowly. He leans in, lowers his voice. Don't drink the well water. You blink. Why? He hesitates. Found something in the samples. Hair, droppings, decay. You nod again. You already stopped weeks ago. On the way out, you pass a stack of wood. Firewood mostly, but wedged between the logs are little traps. Tiny wooden jaws, frozen open, all untouched. You move toward the bakery, hoping for something warm. The shop's empty again. The same child sits behind the counter. He doesn't look up. You ask for bread. He shakes his head. No flour. You ask why. He shrugs. Warehouse got chewed. You ask if anyone's doing anything about it. He gestures to the ceiling. Prayers. You leave with nothing. Outside, the market is thinner than ever. Half the stalls are just empty crates. One man is trying to sell turnips that look like they've been chewed twice already. You spot a merchant whispering with a customer near a stack of cloth. You edge closer. It's the bones, the merchant says. Human, the customer whispers. The merchant shakes his head. Rat bones, too many, all in one place. You lean back and walk away. You take the long road toward the fishmongers, but the smell hits you before you're close. Rancid. Thick. You round the corner and find the stall abandoned. The fish are gone, but the scales are still there. Shimmering, wet, scattered in piles. And the teeth marks. Deep, precise. The rats didn't just take the fish. They harvested it. You step around the stall and spot something in the mud. Tiny paw prints leading to the storm drain. One after another. Clean lines like they were following orders. Historians still argue whether rats can follow complex paths or organize in groups with purpose. Most call that kind of behavior exaggerated, anthropomorphized nonsense. But some believe otherwise. They point to collective foraging, social grooming, even remembered routes. Watching this neat procession of paw prints, you start to wonder. You pass a boarded-up inn. Its windows are smashed, and something dark oozes from beneath the door. A sign hangs crooked above it. Closed until the bleeding stops. A woman stands nearby selling charms. Dried herbs, twisted ribbons, little cloth dolls with rat tails sewn on. You raise an eyebrow. She catches your look and shrugs. They keep them away, she says. You glance at one of the dolls. It's stitched with tiny eyes made of glass beads. The tail twitches in the wind. You buy one. You don't believe in magic, but superstition is cheaper than medicine. You carry it with you as you head toward the cathedral. You didn't plan to go there, but lately you find yourself wandering there more and more, not to pray, just to sit, to breathe something older than panic. You step inside. The light is dim, dust cutting the sunbeams into gold bars across the pews. The air smells of candle wax, incense, and mildew. You walk toward the front and sit. No one speaks. The priest is asleep. You look up at the high windows. Stained glass saints stare down at you. You wonder if they ever had rats in their time, if they knew what it was to live beneath the feet of something smaller and smarter than you. You hear a sound and glance down. A rat, trotting calmly up the center aisle. It stops beside you, looks up, then keeps walking. You watch it climb the pulpit steps. It stands at the top, nose twitching, silhouetted against the colored glass. For a moment, it looks like it's about to speak. Then it vanishes behind the lectern. You stand slowly and walk out. As you pass a pillar, you see something scrawled on the stone in charcoal. They know where we hide. You don't stop walking. Outside, the city feels even smaller. The streets are pinched with debris. Fires smolder in barrels. Dogs bark at empty windows. Children draw chalk rats on walls. You pass a well, hear a splash, and look inside. Something stares back, just for a second. Then it's gone. You keep moving. Back toward home. Back toward your bolted door. Back to your flickering candle and your half-filled jar of rat paste that does nothing. You sit on your cot and look down at your boots. One is chewed. Not badly. Just a single bite. Enough to say, "We were here." You reach into your pocket and pull out the little rat doll. You place it on the windowsill, just in case. You blow out the candle and lie down. You listen to the scratching, to the slow measured sounds in the walls, to the faint clicking of teeth behind the baseboards. And as sleep edges in, you whisper something into the dark. Not a prayer, not a curse, just a thought, a truth. They're not scavenging anymore. And you know you're right, because scavengers take what's left. But these rats, they take what they want. Morning doesn't bring peace. It brings new sounds, low voices, wood being hammered into place, a dog barking, then whimpering. You open your door and step out to find two men building a barrier, right in the middle of the street. They don't look like carpenters. One's a baker's son. The other you've seen hauling buckets behind the tavern. But they're working with purpose, stacking barrels and broken furniture like they're building a fort. You ask what they're doing. "Blocking the crawl," one of them mutters. You frown. "What crawl?" He points at the alley beside the cooper's shop. "They come through there. Always that way, like a path. Same time every night." You glance down the alley. It's narrow and dark, paved in moss and damp leaves. You think of the flower trail from a few days ago, the spoon, the wax. Maybe he's right. You leave them to their work and walk toward the edge of town. The outer wall is crumbling in places. Less wall, more suggestion of one. You pass a row of houses where the windows have been nailed shut from the outside. You don't ask why. Near the gate, you find something strange. A small wooden box tied with string sitting in the road. You crouch beside it. It's filled with trinkets, a candle stub, a piece of dried apple, a scrap of cloth, all neatly arranged, too neat, almost reverent. You glance around. No one's watching. You pick up the box and walk it to the side of the road. Set it down gently. And as you do, you see them. 3 rats sitting at a distance, watching. They don't move. You walk away. The river is high today. Rain upstream probably. The current churns with leaves and foam, and something else. You see a bundle float past. Not a boat. Not quite a body. Wrapped too tightly, bound in rope. You step back from the edge. A boy stands nearby, fishing with a crooked rod. You ask if he saw it? He nods. They're sending them away now, quiet-like. No carts, just river burials. You ask why. He shrugs. Too many, not enough bells. He jerks the rod suddenly and pulls something from the water. It's not a fish. It's a rat. Dead, bloated, tangled in weeds. He looks at it, then at you. Still got teeth, he says, and kicks it back in. You walk away without a word. Further down the bank, you see where the plague ships docked last winter. Long abandoned now, except by them. You creep closer, keeping to the trees. The largest ship still floats, barely. Its deck is collapsed, sails rotted. But you see movement, dozens of them, swarming like ants. They've taken over the hull, built nests in the ribs, dragged scraps of cloth and bone into the corners. One drags a bootlace in its mouth like a trophy. You hear a creak behind you. You turn. A man stands there, eyes sunken, beard wild. You shouldn't be here, he says. You nod. I know. He walks toward the ship. Doesn't say another word. You don't follow. You return to town and pass the church. The priest is outside today, burning something in a bowl. Herbs, maybe. The smoke stings your eyes. He looks up. You seen them near the altar again? You shake your head. They're drawn to it, he mutters. The warmth, the light, or maybe the silence. He doesn't sound angry, just tired. You walk on. Outside the tailor's, you see a line of children playing a game. One stands in the center, arms spread. The Rat King comes, she yells, and the others scatter. You ask an older child what they're doing. It's new, he says. Everyone plays it now. You ask what happens if the Rat King catches you. He grins. You disappear. He runs off before you can ask more. You keep walking, suddenly aware of every footstep, every shadow. The houses seem closer now, the alleys narrower, the sky lower. You pass the meat stall. It's gone, replaced by crates filled with turnips and potatoes. Safer food, less appealing to rats. A sign hangs above it. No blood, no bones. You move through the crowd and hear murmurs. Chewed through the bread wall. Gnawed right through the mattress. Took the baby blanket. You stop. Ask the woman what she means. She shrugs. Gone in the morning, not stolen, taken. You ask who'd take a blanket. She looks you straight in the eye. Who do you think? You leave the market and walk the long way home. The streets bend like veins. You keep seeing shapes where there aren't any. Whiskers in shadows, eyes in drains. You hear something overhead and look up. On the roof, a rat. Big, too big. It walks the ridge beam like a tightrope. Another follows. Then a third. You walk faster. At home, you find something at your door. A stone, wrapped in cloth. Inside the cloth, a tooth. Small, sharp, still bloody. You look around. The street is empty. You take it inside anyway. Because what else can you do? You sit at the table, light a candle. You pull your boots off and see it. More chew marks. New ones. They weren't there this morning. You listen. Nothing. Not yet. But you feel them. Below. Above. All around. Historians still debate whether the phenomenon of organized rat raids ever truly happened in medieval cities. Some call it myth. Others point to vague records, anecdotal accounts, like the Flower Thief Chronicle or the Lost Meal of Metz. But you don't need scrolls or scholars. You live here. And tonight, you realize something deeply uncomfortable. They're not moving randomly. They're not feeding blindly. They're not waiting anymore. They're converging. You place the tooth on the table. Whisper to yourself, they want more than crumbs. And blow out the candle. Me? The morning air tastes metallic. You wake to the sound of voices, panicked, rising, overlapping. You dress quickly and step outside. A crowd has formed near the grain depot. You push through slowly, carefully, until you see it. The doors are open. The grain is gone. Not stolen, not spilled, gone. Just empty. Wooden barrels lie torn like paper. Sacks shredded into gauze. The floor is layered in husks, droppings, and tunnels. Hundreds of them, like veins cut into earth. You kneel beside one and peer inside. It goes deeper than it should, deeper than is possible. You whisper, "How far down does this go?" No one answers, except maybe the faint scratching. Someone shouts. The crowd surges. A merchant points to the rafters, screaming about flea nests and black trails. Another man lifts a broken broom and starts smashing at the beams. Bits of wood rain down. No rats emerge. That's worse somehow. You step back, move away. Too many people. Too many eyes darting. A boy cries out behind you. Something bit him. Blood trickles down his finger. His mother wraps it quickly. She doesn't look afraid. She just looks resigned. As you head down the road, a rat dashes across your path, bold and fast. Another follows, and another. You pause. They're all running the same direction. You follow. Through the alleys, behind the wine cellars, past the well with the warning sign that no one reads anymore. You reach the old watchtower. It hasn't been manned in years, but the rats, they've found it. At the base is a hole, wide and gaping, dug by claw and tooth, a tunnel carved right into the foundation. You crouch. It stinks, not of decay, of density, of heat, of presence. You listen, breathing, so many of them. You rise quickly and step away. Someone touches your shoulder. You jump. It's an old woman, one of the quiet ones who always watches but never speaks. They're nesting there, she says. You nod slowly. Why here, you ask? She taps her temple. Higher ground, better air, easier escape. You shiver. You pass the cathedral next. The bells are silent today. No services, just silence. But there's movement inside. You step through the heavy door. A man kneels at the altar, surrounded by candles. A line of salt circles the pulpit. The priest is gone. Only this man remains, praying not in Latin, but something else. You listen. The words aren't human. You back out slowly and close the door behind you. Outside, the city breathes like something alive. The wind shifts, bringing the scent of ash. You head to the public square and find it already buzzing with energy. Not commerce, not worship. Panic. Someone shouting about the rats getting into the mayor's house. Another says they chewed through the archives. Records gone, contracts erased, tax logs reduced to mulch. You ask if it's true. A clerk answers. They ate the ink. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because you don't know what else to do. You find yourself near the schoolhouse. Children are gathered outside, not playing, drawing. Dozens of little hands, scratching charcoal onto the stone wall. You look closer. They're drawing doors. Small round ones, low to the ground, with symbols above them. You ask what they're doing. One child grins. So they know where to go. You kneel. Who? He points to the gutter. A tail vanishes inside. You stand slowly and walk away. At the apothecary, the jars are overturned. Herbs scattered. The whole front wall chewed away. Inside, you find the apothecary himself. Alive but shaken. He holds a bag of dried lavender like it's a weapon. They took the mandrake, he says. Not ate, took. You ask why. He doesn't answer. You don't push. You hear a bell in the distance. Not the church. The town's emergency bell. You follow the sound, heart thumping. A fire at the old storehouse. By the time you arrive, the flames are half eaten already. Smoke coils into the sky, black and foul. The crowd stands back, they're helpless. You hear someone say, "They did it." You turn. A man with soot on his face stares at the blaze. The rats. They sparked it, chewed the oilcloth, knocked the lantern. You ask why they do that. He looks at you. Diversion. You feel your blood run cold. You walk home slower this time. Every corner seems to twitch. Every shadow shifts. You stop at the butcher's. What's left of it? Bones are stacked outside now. Not for disposal, for warning. They've started to hang rats by the tails from the beams. A message, or an offering. You can't tell which. Inside, the floor is scraped clean. Not swept, licked. The butcher tells you his dog ran off. Won't come near anymore. Sleeps on the roof. You get home and bolt the door. Light a candle. Then another. Then another. You place them in a circle. You don't know why. You sit inside it and wait. You try not to think about what you saw today. About the children drawing doors. About the tunnel under the tower. About the rat that paused outside the fire and watched. Not afraid, not surprised. Just watching. Historians still debate whether the rats understood what was happening, whether they responded to plague instinctively or with conscious adaptation. The term murine intelligence is thrown around in certain circles. Some scoff, some write entire volumes. You don't write anything. You just sit in silence, surrounded by wax and fear. And in the quiet, you hear a sound. Not scratching. Footsteps. Tiny. Many. Moving in unison. You close your eyes and whisper, "They're organizing." Because what else could this be? The footsteps don't stop. You sit inside your halo of candles, trying to convince yourself that it's just your mind playing games. The wax drips. The flames flicker. But the sound continues, steady, coordinated, like the ticking of a clock made of claws. You reach for something to hold. not a weapon. There's no war you can win here, just a bit of grounding. Your hand finds the little rat doll you bought from the woman in the square. You clutch it like a talisman. It doesn't help. When the noise finally fades, it's not because the rats have gone. It's because they've settled. Somewhere. Together. You rise at dawn, too tired to call it waking. The streets are already full, not of people, but of signs, scratches on doorposts, odd little stacks of bones outside thresholds. In one case, a bundle of thread and feathers hanging from a drainpipe. You walk to the square and find a cluster of people staring at something. A hole, new, deep, dug overnight, in the middle of the cobblestones. One man pokes it with a stick. Another throws in a pebble. You all wait, but there's no sound, just depth. You hear someone mutter, "It's spreading underground." No one argues. You turn and walk toward the docks. You haven't been there in days, not since the wrapped body drifted past you in the river. But you want to see how far the infestation has spread. When you arrive, you find chaos. Crumpled sacks, splintered crates, ships half unloaded, their crews nowhere in sight. But the worst part is the rats. Everywhere. Running up ropes, chewing sails, diving into barrels. You see one jump from the rigging into the open mouth of a water jug. You don't hear it hit the bottom. You spot a merchant you vaguely recognize, the one who used to import figs from the south. He's kneeling on the dock, emptying a pouch of coins into the water. You ask him why. He looks up, eyes wide. "They're watching the gold now," he says. You ask who. He just says, "them." You leave him there, muttering to the tide. Further inland, things are quieter, but not better. You pass the blacksmith's shop. The forge is cold. The door stands open. Inside, the tools are all in place, but they're cleaner than you've ever seen. Too clean. You step inside. On the far wall, you see it. Symbols, drawn in soot. 3 small rat paw prints. Then a swirl. Then a mark that looks almost human. A spiral with lines branching outward like little fingers. You don't know what it means, but your stomach knots just the same. You turn and run into the square. You find the baker's child again. He's drawing in the dust with a stick. Same shapes. Over and over. You kneel. "Where did you see those?" you ask. He shrugs. "They leave them sometimes? On the wood, on the doors. Mama says it's how they talk." You feel cold. You walk away quickly. You pass a man screaming into the air. He's holding a rat by the tail, spinning in circles. "Who sent you?" he yells. "Who's in charge?" The rat is limp. Maybe dead. Maybe just patient. You keep moving. The town watch has taken to marching in pairs now. Not because of people, but because of fear. You hear one mutter, "You seen that one with the scar on its back? Shows up everywhere. Same eyes, same walk." You wonder if he's imagining it. You hope he is. But you remember that rat on the church pulpit. The one that didn't run. You find yourself heading toward the market. Not to buy anything. There's nothing left worth buying. But because people gather there. And right now, proximity feels like safety. Or at least the illusion of it. You hear talk of a rat that stole a ring. Of another that dragged a rosary into the sewer. Of an entire storage room found perfectly sorted into piles. Grains, bones, fabric, tools. Categorized. Curated. Historians still dispute whether rats can engage in what's called object discrimination, the ability to not only recognize, but sort different types of items for use. Some experiments suggest yes. Others say it's coincidence. But coincidence doesn't explain the careful stacks in the apothecary's cellar, or the organized tunnels beneath the baker's, or the symbols on the blacksmith's wall. Coincidence doesn't watch you while you sleep. You wander past the fountain and sit. A girl beside you hums a little tune. You listen, then realize the melody isn't random. It's the pattern of the footsteps from last night. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, 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 scrape. You ask her where she heard it. She points at the ground. They walk like that when they're in a line, she says, like a little army. You ask her name. She doesn't answer. You don't ask again. You sit there a long time watching the pigeons fight over crumbs. One lands near a sewer grate and pecks twice, then freezes. You watch its wings twitch, its body stiffen. Then you see the tail wrap around its leg. You don't stay to see the rest. You head toward the cathedral. The doors are closed now, nailed shut. A sign on the front says, "Cleansing underway. Return after 7 days." You wonder who decided that. You take the long road home. The shadows stretch differently now, longer, deeper, as if the sun is being pulled away. You pass a house with no door, just a hole you know wasn't there yesterday. And in the rubble beside it, a bell, tiny, silver. You recognize it from the apothecary's shop. You reach home and step inside, light the candles, sit. You think of the merchant pouring coins into the river, the child humming a rat's march, the forge marked with symbols. You wonder if it's too late to run. And then, for the first time in days, you do something else. You write. Not for posterity, not for history, but for whoever finds this place after you're gone. You write one sentence. We were not the only minds in the city. You fold the page, place it under the rat doll on the windowsill, and blow out the candle. You wake to the sound of something dragging. Not footsteps, not scratching, something heavier. You sit up slowly. The sky outside is still the pale gray of pre-dawn. The streets are silent, but the sound continues. A wet, rhythmic scrape, like something being pulled across stone. You pull on your boots, though one has a new hole in it, and crack the door open. There it is, down the street. Something being dragged. A corpse? No, not quite. It's a mattress. You step outside and follow it, barefooted on instinct, heart in your throat. It's moving by itself. No, not by itself. Rats. A dozen, maybe more, working together, hauling the mattress like ants with a crumb too big. Each gripping part of the fabric in their teeth, pulling it with shocking coordination, turning corners, avoiding obstacles. You freeze in place as they pass. One glances at you, just a flick of its eyes. Then they move on. You don't follow. You go back inside. Sit at your table. Try not to shake. But the tremor is in you now. Like you're not watching the world unravel anymore. You're living inside the unraveling. You used to think rats just waited for scraps. Now you know better. They choose. You head back out once the sun rises proper. Not because you want to, but because staying still makes you feel like bait. Outside the street is tidier. That's the strangest part. The trash pile behind the Coopers is gone. The meat scraps from the alley disappeared. The bones that line the butcher's stoop collected. You ask around. A woman shrugs. Must have been the boys, she says, or the wind. But you both know it wasn't. You walk past the well where someone's tied a bucket upside down. Scrawled on it in charcoal, "Stay above." You glance inside the well. It's empty. Too empty. Even the moss is gone. Down by the mill, things are worse. You arrive to find half the wheel chewed through, the wooden paddles floating downstream. The miller stands outside with his arms crossed, lips trembling. They didn't eat it, he says. They took it. You ask what he means. He points. You see a trail. Wood shards. Bits of burlap. A bit of a shoe. And prints. Not just paws, feet. Tiny clawed feet in a row, dozens of rows. Marching in a pattern. You don't speak. Neither does he. You move on because looking too long makes your throat tighten. You head for the edge of town. There's an old barn there. Used to house cattle, then horses, then carts. Now it's mostly empty. You've heard whispers of strange sounds. You slip inside. It's dim. Dust catches in the light that leaks through the boards. And something stinks. Not decay. Fermentation. You move carefully, pressing close to the wall. Then you see it. A mound. Not trash, not hay. A structure built of sticks, cloth, twine, bones, bits of metal. It rises from the center of the barn like a shrine, or a throne, or a nest. And crawling on it, through it, beneath it, rats. Scores of them. Not running. Building. Organizing. Placing items precisely. Weaving together strands. One carries a spoon. Another carries a rosary. Another drags what looks like a puppet's head. You step back. A board creaks under your heel. They freeze. All of them. They look at you. No hissing, no panic. Just silence. Then one of them, larger than the rest, with a scar across its back, climbs to the top of the mound and sits. It stares. Not curious. Not afraid. Just observant. You back away slowly, hands up. You leave the barn. You don't run. Not until you're out of sight. You head to the church. You know it's boarded up, but you bang anyway. Someone opens the door. The priest. He pulls you inside and bolts it behind you. You gasp. They're building something. He nods. I know. You sit in the back pew, heart still pounding. He sits beside you. I've seen the tunnels, he says. They don't just go under streets. They go under walls, under graves. You look at him. You think they're planning. He doesn't answer. Instead, he says, they took the bones from the crypt. Your skin prickles. You ask, why? He shrugs, then whispers, to remember. You leave before dark. Outside, the town is tense. Everyone speaks in half words. Doors are shut. Windows are sealed. Candles flicker behind glass like warning lights. You hear music in the square. Not lute, not voice. A bell. Soft, faint. You follow the sound. It's coming from beneath a cart. A child sits there, dangling a silver bell on a string. Around him, 4 rats sit in a half circle, watching. He smiles. They like music, he says. You kneel. Where did you learn that? He shrugs. They told me. You walk home without speaking to anyone else. Bolt your door. Light your candles. Place the rat doll in the window again. Historians still puzzle over certain folk tales, strange patterns of behavior during plague years. Communities claiming the rats took tribute. Reports of coordinated absences of vermin before fires, collapses, or even earthquakes. Most call it hysteria, but they weren't there. They didn't feel what you feel now. The sense of being watched, of being understood, of being assessed. As you sit in the dark, you hear movement in the wall. Not scurrying, pacing, and a new sound. Whispering, not words, but breath through teeth. You don't move. You don't breathe. And in that moment, you understand. They aren't waiting. They're choosing. Law. You don't sleep that night. You lie awake listening to the walls breathe, not in the poetic sense, not in metaphor. You hear the wood strain and creak as if something behind it is alive, or many things, in rhythm. It's not scratching anymore. It's pacing, shifting, settling, like they're adjusting their chairs before a sermon. You rise before dawn and dress slowly, quietly. You open the door to gray light and a street that feels still, not peaceful, just paused. Something has changed. You pass the tavern and see the door is gone, not broken, removed. Carefully, the hinges unscrewed, the wood stacked neatly against the side of the building. Inside, the tables are overturned, the ale barrels opened and drained, not spilled, emptied. You step in. The floor has been swept. There are claw marks on the stools. You leave before you start imagining who might have been sitting there. Back on the street, you notice the birds are gone. Not a single crow, no gulls at the dock, no pigeons on the roofs. You walk toward the mill again, toward the road that leads out of town. It's busier than it should be. People are leaving. On foot, mostly. Carts are rare. Families carry bundles, eyes down. No one speaks. No one says why. But you know. You stop a boy carrying a sack bigger than he is. Where are you going? He shrugs. Somewhere without them. You ask who he means. He doesn't answer. But he tightens the sack, like he thinks something inside it might still be listening. You let him go. You don't blame them. You start walking again, but now every building you pass feels like it's being watched from within. You don't see anyone, but the shutters twitch. The chimneys don't smoke. You start noticing patterns. A pile of feathers in front of 3 doors. A trail of teeth near the blacksmith's. A rat skull on top of a salt barrel, its jaw open like it died mid-laugh. You reach the old guardhouse. It's locked, abandoned for weeks. But inside you hear voices. Low, urgent. You knock. The door opens a crack. A face you don't recognize stares at you. Are you alone? He asks. You nod. He pulls you inside. There are 4 of them. 2 men, 2 women, not soldiers, townsfolk. They're drawing on parchment, diagrams. You lean in. Tunnels, paths, timelines. You ask what it is. One woman, sharp eyes, ink-stained fingers, says, "It's not random." She points to the map. They move at dawn, every 3rd day, toward water, then vanish again. You ask if anyone else knows. They don't want to, another says. You glance around the room. One wall is covered in sketches, strange tools, patterns of droppings, symbols scratched on stone. And in the center of it all, one phrase. A what if they never left? You feel your stomach twist. You leave the guardhouse quietly. Back in the square, you see the baker's child again. He's wearing a crown. Not a proper one, made of sticks, twine, rat tails. You stop him. Who gave you that? He smiles. They did. You kneel. Who's they exactly? He shrugs. The ones in the deep house. You ask where that is. He points straight down. You don't ask more. You're afraid you'll understand the answer. You visit the cathedral next. The boards are still in place, but someone's carved symbols into them overnight. Tiny spirals, four-pointed stars, scratch marks that look too precise to be random. You place your hand on the wood. It's warm. You walk to the river. It smells different now. Not rot, not salt, like herbs. You follow the scent to the docks and find bundles of mint and sage tied beneath the beams. Someone's trying to bless the place, or mask it. On the water, you see a raft floating silently downstream. Not a funeral raft, a gift. On it, grain, dried flowers, a candle. And seated in the middle, perfectly still, a rat. Alive, eyes closed. You don't watch it float away. You walk back through the lower town. The shops are all closed now. The tanner's door is nailed shut. The apothecary is empty. But the windows aren't broken. The shops haven't been looted. They've been left alone. You realize something as you stand there, listening to your own breath. The rats aren't scavenging anymore. They're managing, curating, allowing. Historians still argue whether rats understand ownership, if they can claim space, set boundaries, protect territory. In labs, yes, but a medieval city with this level of coordination? Most say no. You say they haven't seen what you've seen. You pass a man nailing cloth over his door. He looks at you and says, "We stopped being in charge weeks ago." You don't disagree. At your own door, you find something waiting. 3 pieces of dried apple, laid in a row. You pick them up, not with fear, with respect. Inside, you sit at your table. The candles are already lit. You didn't light them. You listen to the wall. No pacing tonight. Just breathing. You lean close. And for the first time, you whisper something not in defiance, but in greeting. Good evening. You wait. And from inside the wall, one soft scratch. You nod. Sleep doesn't come quickly. But when it does, you dream of tiny voices, not speaking, singing. You wake with a word on your tongue. Not one you know, not one in any language you've ever spoken, but it echoes in your mind like something given, not learned. Like it arrived in the night, tiptoed past your defenses and planted itself inside you. You sit up. The apple pieces are gone. You didn't eat them. You check your window. Closed. Locked. But the rat doll has been moved. It now faces you. You dress carefully. Choose quiet boots. Pack a small pouch with bread, water, and your notes, the ones you started after the barn. You don't know where you're going, but you know you can't stay idle anymore. Outside, the sky is silver and swollen. A storm building. You make your way toward the chapel district, what's left of it. Most of the shrines have been emptied, some burned, others just crumbled. You pause at a well. This one's been sealed. Planks nailed over the opening, slathered with pitch. You run your fingers over the wood. The air above it smells sweet. Too sweet. Like honey left too long. A sign hangs above the well in smudged ink. Do not open, even now. You walk on. Past the library where windows are broken but neatly. No glass litters the street. It was gathered, placed into buckets that now sit by the doorway, filled with water. A sign is scratched into the stone above the door. No fire. You don't go inside. Further down, you reach the old infirmary. Empty, but not ruined. The beds are still made. The floors have been swept. And in every cot, laid out in neat rows, scraps, bits of cloth, thimbles, spoon handles, a child's boot. You step carefully. One bed has a note pinned to it. She will return. You leave quietly. Back on the street, you hear a sound. Drums. No, feet. A rhythm. You press yourself against a wall as they pass. A procession. 12 rats. Walking in a line. Carrying something. A doll. Human-shaped. Woven from straw. Dressed in threadbare cloth. Its eyes are made of beetle shells. At the end of the line walks a rat with a black streak down its back. The same one from the barn. You don't move. It doesn't look at you. You follow them. Down alleys you've never walked. Past doors that seem older than the town. You pass murals drawn in ash. One shows a man sleeping while rats build a tower over him. Another shows a hand, open, offered, and a rat sitting in the palm like a crown. They lead you to the chapel ruins. You hide behind the broken wall and watch. The rats place the doll on the altar, then step back. They wait, and you wait. For what, you don't know. Then you hear the voice, not aloud, in you, like a dream you remember mid-step. It says, "We remember when you fed us." And then, "We remember when you forgot us." You stumble backward, knock over a broken stone. It crashes to the ground. The rats turn. They don't run. They watch. You stand and say simply, "I saw the barn." The one with the streak approaches. It stops 2 feet from you, then drops something at your feet. A coin, but not silver, not gold. It's carved from bone. You pick it up. It's warm. You look up, and they're gone. All of them. You don't go home right away. You stop by the square. People are gathered. No one speaks. They're looking at the fountain. There's something floating in the water. A message. Written on parchment, soaked but legible. "We do not want your cities. We want what lies beneath them." Someone sobs. No one asks what it means. You pass the baker's stall. The child is gone. In his place, a single roll of bread, unbitten, wrapped in ivy. You don't touch it. You reach the church. The boards have been removed. Inside, it's filled with light. Dozens of candles, all burning clean. No wax pooled, no scent of smoke. In the center of the room, a spiral, drawn in salt and ash. No one speaks. You walk in a circle around it. Once, twice. On the third, you feel the whisper again. Inside you. You are remembering. Historians dismiss rat worship as myth. A few 14th century texts mention vermin cults, but they're usually discredited fabrications of fear, symbols of chaos. Yet certain details repeat: processions, dolls, coins of bone. Rituals performed not for humans, but in front of them. You leave the church. It begins to rain. Soft even. The kind of rain that soaks slowly into your hair, your shoes, your bones. You return home. The candles are still lit. You don't remember lighting them. The rat doll now sits on your bed, holding the bone coin. You don't speak. You kneel, not in prayer, not in fear, just in recognition. And from inside the wall, the voice again, "You will carry this." And you will, because some thrones are low to the ground. and some kingdoms wear fur. The next morning, the rain has stopped, but the silence hasn't. It's the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, that bends the world slightly out of shape. You open your door expecting to hear something: footsteps, wheels, the clatter of a dropped bucket. But there's only mist and the smell of wet stone. You step outside and see that the street has changed again. Not visibly, not in any one detail, but the feeling. You're not the only one who feels it. Down the lane, a woman stands on her stoop holding a broom, but not sweeping, just staring. Frozen mid-task. She catches your eye, but neither of you waves. There's nothing left to wait for. You walk toward the square, slowly, deliberately, like someone walking into a room where they suspect something's waiting in the dark. You pass a new carving on a wall. A human figure, arms outstretched, surrounded by rats, all looking up. And in the center of the figure's chest, scratched deeply, a spiral. That symbol again. The one you first saw in the barn. It's not just showing up now, it's spreading. At the fountain, you find a group of people standing in a circle. No one speaks. They're watching someone, a boy, dancing, but not playfully. He moves with precision: step, turn, tap, pause. Like he's following a pattern no one else can hear. You recognize it. The rhythm of the feet in the walls, the strange cadence of the bone drums you haven't heard but somehow know. You ask someone what he's doing. They whisper, "Dancing the dream." You don't ask more. The boy stops, bows to no one, and walks away. The crowd disperses like fog. You continue on. At the edge of town, you pass the tailor's. A sign now hangs crooked above the door. Closed until the silence lifts. You look through the window. The shop has been emptied. Completely. Not ransacked. Sorted. All fabric gone. All tools gone. Even the stool. On the floor, a single mouse-sized tunic, sewn with perfect tiny stitches. You don't go inside. Back toward the church, you notice the salt lines across thresholds have become more intricate. Not just barriers, symbols. Patterns that mimic the ones carved in walls, drawn in ash, whispered into dreams. They're not keeping anything out anymore. They're marking who's allowed to be let in. You step carefully over one of them and approach the church door. It opens before you touch it. Inside, the spiral has grown. Now made of braided cloth, candles form its border. And at the center, the priest, kneeling. His eyes are closed. He's murmuring something. You lean in. It's not Latin. It's not any language you've heard before. But your body understands it. The weight, the rhythm, the offering of breath. You kneel beside him, not to copy, to listen. He says softly, "They dream of a world without waste." You ask, "Are we waste?" He doesn't answer. You leave before the question swallows you. Outside, the mist is lifting, and with it, a sound. Music, but not from strings or voices, from bells. Soft, delicate, precise, not rung, tapped. You follow the sound past the market, past the old well, past what used to be the stables. There in the courtyard of the old schoolhouse you see them, a circle of children, each with a tiny bell, each tapping it in rhythm. In the center, a rat. Not large, not fearsome, just still, listening. You approach slowly. No one stops you. You sit on a stone and watch. The tapping grows more complex. The rhythm folds in on itself, then emerges again. A few of the children begin to hum. One starts to sway. You see their eyes are closed. Then the rat lifts its head, turns, and walks away. The bells stop. The children open their eyes and go back to their games like nothing happened. You whisper to no one, "What are we becoming?" And the air whispers back, "You were always this." You return home by way of the back alleys, where the walls lean closer and the cobbles run with things you'd rather not name. You pass a bucket filled with ash. Inside it, 3 carved teeth. One has a spiral etched into its root. Another has a hole drilled through its top, like a charm. You don't touch them. At your door, you pause. There's something on your stoop. A circle of clover. Inside it, a pebble, carved with a spiral. You kneel, pick it up, turn it in your palm. It hums, almost imperceptibly, like memory, like a voice you haven't heard since childhood calling from a field. You take it inside, set it next to the bone coin and the rat doll. They look like a collection now, or an altar. You sit. Listen. Tonight, there is no scratching, no pacing, only the sound of something waiting. Historians still debate the so-called dancing sickness of the late 1300s and early 1400s. Some called it mass hysteria. Others blamed ergot poisoning. But a few old records, mostly dismissed, claim the dance was taught, that it was passed through dreams, guided by unseen hands, reinforced by rhythms not heard but felt. You believe that now, because your foot is tapping, and you don't remember deciding to do it. It begins with meat. You're passing the market at dusk, a place that, for weeks, has smelled only of turnips, rot, and fear when the scent hits you. Roast. Fresh, spiced, real. You stop in your tracks. It's coming from a stall that hasn't been open in days. A new one. Just a single plank table, a clay oven, and standing behind it, a man you don't recognize. You approach cautiously. The man is clean-shaven. His apron is spotless. His hands move with care as he turns a skewer over the coals. You ask what it is. He smiles. Meat, he says. Given, not hunted. You frown. Given by who? He doesn't answer. Just wraps the meat in a fig leaf and places it on the table. For you. You hesitate. Then walk away. But the smell follows you. Trails behind you like incense from a ritual you didn't agree to attend. You reach the edge of the square and you see them. Watching. 3 rats, perched on the stone lip of the fountain. Still. Eyes fixed on you. And that fig-wrapped meat. You turn a corner. Breathe. Try to shake the unease. Then you hear the laughter. High-pitched, fast, frenzied. You rush toward it. A crowd has gathered outside the old theater. It's not laughter of joy. It's compulsion. You push through the group and peer inside. Someone is dancing on stage. Spinning, leaping, slamming heels into the floor. You recognize him. The clerk from the tax office. His eyes are wild. His shirt is soaked through. He moves like he's being puppeted. And he's not alone. On the stage beside him, rats. 3. Mimicking. Perfectly. Step for step. You turn away. You've seen enough. The dancing mania has returned, they'll say later. A historical curiosity. A footnote. But you know what this is. A lesson. A warning. A rehearsal. You retreat down an alley and pause to breathe. The world smells different again. Not decay, not fire. Spice. You look down. A trail of crushed fennel seeds, leading to the sewer grate. You crouch. It's open. The bars gnawed wide. You whisper, "Is this your kitchen now?" A soft squeak answers you. Not threat, not fear. Invitation. You walk quickly back toward home. But the streets are busy now. Not with people. With processions. Rats, organized, slow, methodical, moving in lines. Carrying things. One holds a cork. Another a feather. Another drags a string of dry peppers. You stand aside. They do not alter course. And you think, this is not stealing. This is preparation. You reach your door and find something pinned to it. A spiral drawn in honey. Flies gather at the edges. You wipe it away and step inside. The room feels rearranged. You didn't leave the candle there. You didn't put the doll on the chair. But here they are, waiting. You sit, slowly, carefully. On the table, the bone coin, the carved pebble, the cloth-wrapped tooth. And now, next to them, a button. One of yours. From a shirt you no longer own. You laugh, once, softly. Then you do something you haven't done in weeks. You eat. Just bread and water. But it feels like communion. You hear the whispers again. Not words. Rhythm. Music. You hum along. You don't know how you know the tune. But it fits. You step outside. The moon is out now. Full. Huge. Too huge. And under it, the town moves like something asleep but dreaming deeply. Every window glows. Every shadow flickers. On the roof of the old bell tower, a rat sits alone. It howls. Not a squeak, not a shriek. A song. And from every corner of the city, others answer. Together, a choir of tiny throats. A hymn older than bells. Older than streets. Older than you. You drop to your knees. Not in fear. In awe. Historians never agree on what the rats wanted. Survival? Shelter? Food? But that's always the mistake, isn't it? Assuming they want anything like we do. What if it's not want? What if it's memory? What if they're not building something new, but rebuilding what once was? Before cities. Before man. Before names. You open your mouth to speak. But what comes out is a squeak. Small. Unmistakable. And from the drain beside your foot, one answer. A squeak of recognition. You smile. You close your door and sit in the dark. Not waiting. Not watching. Just being. Part of it now. Part of them. It starts raining bones. Not from the sky exactly, but from above. From rooftops, from eaves, from chimneys where pigeons used to nest. You're walking toward the well when the first one hits the ground beside you. Tiny, clean, a finger bone, or something very close to it. You look up just in time to see a second fall. This one lands in the gutter and clatters twice before settling beside a scrap of cloth. No one screams. A few people gather them carefully like relics, like evidence. One woman tucks hers into her apron. Another prays over it. You don't stop her. You don't speak. You look around and realize everyone is moving more quietly now. Less like people, more like guests. You step into the old alley near the Coopers, the one that always smelled of wet wood and bad beer. Now it smells of lavender, faint but deliberate. And there, drawn on the ground in chalk, is a perfect spiral, At its center, a dead rat, not crushed, placed, laid out as if for burial. On its chest, someone has balanced a tiny carved bead. You walk on, past a house that used to have 5 children. Now it has one window open, and from it, soft whistling. A lullaby. The same one you heard hummed near the church. The same one in your dreams. You pause to listen, and then you feel it. A presence behind you. You turn slowly. Nothing, but something's changed. The air tastes like copper. You find the nearest bench and sit. Let the city move around you. You notice the patterns more clearly now. Rats no longer travel randomly. They move in arcs, spirals, circles. Routes you once called chaotic now feel planned. You remember the barn. You remember the throne. You remember the coin of bone, still on your table. What is a coin if not a token of exchange? What have you given? What have they taken? What have you agreed to without knowing? You rise and make your way to the bathhouse. It's cold now. The firewood's long gone, but people still gather there. To speak, to confess, to warn. You step inside and find a dozen people sitting in silence. In the center of the room is a mound of soap, all shapes, all colors, all gnawed. Someone has arranged the bars into a dome. A woman beside you whispers, "They cleanse before ritual." You don't ask how she knows. You just nod. You exit the bathhouse and head to the orchard, what's left of it. Most of the trees have died or been chopped down, but one still stands, bent, gnarled, but alive. And under it, someone has laid offerings. Bread crusts, pebbles, a silver ring, and again the spiral. Always the spiral. You kneel beside it and feel something move beneath the soil. Just a tremor, but not of earth. Of roots, living ones, digging, spreading, feeding. You whisper, "I remember." And the wind answers. Not with sound, but with feeling. Like approval. You walk back toward town and find the square transformed. Where once there were carts and chaos, now there are circles. Chalk spirals drawn in precise symmetry. People stand at the edges, not speaking. One by one, they step inside and walk the pattern. It's not a performance. It's instruction. You step in. Follow the curve. It winds inward, then outward, then in again. And when you reach the center, something in you shifts. Not breaks, just bends. And through that bend, a memory leaks in. Not yours, but ancient. Of tunnels before roads. Of kings without crowns. Of laws written in scent and silence. You leave the spiral calm, changed. You head to the guardhouse. No one guards anymore. But the room with the maps still stands. Someone has added to the walls. New symbols, detailed diagrams of the sewer lines, schedules, tally marks. And at the center of the largest map, a red spiral, circled in wax, labeled simply, "The Event." You don't ask what it means. Because now, you know, it's not an invasion. It's a return. You walk the rest of the way home without seeing anyone, but you feel them. In every wall, every rooftop, every inch of shadow. They're not hiding. They're waiting. You reach your door. It's open. You step inside. On your table, the doll now sits, cross-legged. The bone coin lies atop the pebble. Beside them, a rat. Alive. Calm. It looks at you. You don't move. You wait. It tilts its head, then turns, and walks to the far wall, slips into the gap behind the stones. Gone, but not forgotten. You sit, light no candles. There is enough glow now from within. Historians rarely agree on mass delusion. They debate whether entire towns can slip into shared fantasy. But what if it's not delusion? What if it's recalibration? A realignment of reality to include things that were always there. You lie down, close your eyes, and for the first time in weeks, you do not dream. Because you don't need to. The dream is already here, walking on 4 feet, trailing tails like threads through history. The dream doesn't end when you wake. You open your eyes and the world is not different. It's aligned. Like something has snapped into focus after days of looking at it sideways. You sit up slowly. The room is exactly as you left it. The coin, the pebble, the doll, the claw mark on your door. Nothing added, nothing taken. And yet, everything feels touched, as if each object has been rearranged by some intelligence that values symmetry over sentiment. You don't feel intruded upon. You feel included. You step outside. The sun is pale and veiled behind high clouds. The streets shimmer, not with water, but with a kind of order. The garbage piles are gone. Even the stench has changed, from decay to earth, mulch, something herbal. A man you've never seen before walks past carrying a bundle of straw. Behind him, a rat follows. Not like a pet, like a partner. You walk toward the square. Someone has built a spiral out of bricks, waist-high, dry set, perfectly balanced. Children run circles around it, not laughing, not shouting, just running, matching each other's pace without speaking. A woman watches them from a bench. You sit beside her. She doesn't look at you, but she says, "It was always about rhythm, not reason." You nod. You don't know why you understand, but you do. You ask, "Is it the event today?" She smiles faintly. Every day is part of it. Today is just when you notice. You walk again, past the tailor shop, where a new robe hangs in the window. It's not for people. It's tiny, perfectly stitched, a spiral embroidered on the back. You see a boy sweeping the alley beside the tannery. He's whistling the lullaby again. Only now you recognize it, not as a song, but a signal. A code passed ear to ear, generation to generation. One of the rats peeks out of a barrel nearby and listens. Doesn't run, just listens. You walk toward the docks. The water is calm, and floating in the harbor is a single raft. Atop it, fruit, bread, a candle, a doll with button eyes and no mouth. No rats, just the offering. You stand on the dock for a long time. Then you whisper, "We give this freely." The wind shifts, and you smell clove. You return through the grain district, where sacks once vanished nightly. Now they sit intact. Rats sit atop them, not eating, guarding. A man with a feathered hat nods at one. "You keep watch, I keep records," he says. You realize the rats are choosing who stays and who goes. You don't feel threatened. You feel vetted. In the old town hall where laws were once shouted, you find silence and a new book, bound in cloth, laced in twine. You open it. Inside, drawings, spirals, arcs, circles within circles, rat prints, human hands beside them. One page simply reads, "Cohabitation, not conquest." You leave a note at the end. We remember the spiral. You exit the hall and walk north, past the stone circle where the dancers once convulsed. Now it's empty, except for one rat sitting in the center. You kneel. It doesn't move. You place your hand palm down on the earth beside it. The rat steps forward, lays one paw on your knuckle. You don't flinch. The sky above grumbles. Rain threatens. But it doesn't fall. You walk home. The city is hushed, but not dead. It breathes. Together, on your doorstep, another offering. A fishbone, perfectly clean, wrapped in ivy, tied with a ribbon from the tailor shop. You accept it. Inside, your table has changed again. The doll now holds the bone coin in both hands. A second coin rests beside it, wood this time, carved with the same spiral. You add yours to the pile, not out of duty, out of kinship. You light no candles tonight. The walls pulse with quiet energy. You lie down, and before sleep takes you, you hear the sound again. That careful rhythm. Feet tapping stone. Soft voices humming under the floor. You don't fear them. You wait for them and whisper, "I'm listening." Historians dismiss this era as chaos, pestilence, death, confusion. They note population decline, shifts in power, weird cults, strange rituals. They always miss the harmony, because history is written by those who speak loudest, but harmony is kept by those who listen. And tonight, you sleep in tune with the quietest kingdom. You don't wake in your bed. You wake on the floor, face pressed to cool stone, palms flat, like you laid yourself down deliberately during the night. The room is dark, but warm, and as you rise, you see that your door is ajar, just slightly. You didn't open it, but you're not afraid. You step outside. The street is covered in leaves, not from trees. There are no trees here, but arranged. Every leaf perfectly placed, forming a winding path down the road. You follow it, past doorways draped in fabric, each dyed a different color. Rust, amber, slate, each with a tiny circle stitched near the hem. A man stands in a window above, holding a small bowl of oats. He tips it gently onto the sill. Several rats appear. They eat without frenzy. One nods before disappearing. You keep walking. At the square, something new. A platform. Wooden. Circular. Raised by stones scavenged from broken walls. At its center, a chair. Low to the ground. Carved from bone-white driftwood. You don't have to ask what it is. You already know. It's not a throne for a king. It's a seat of memory. A place where something once ruled, and might again, not through force, but through pattern. You move past it and enter the bakery, not to buy anything, but because the scent draws you in. The shop is empty, but on the table sits a single loaf, shaped like a spiral. Beside it, crumbs, arranged in a ring, and sitting at the far end of the table, a rat, eyes closed, breathing, not sleeping, remembering. You don't disturb it. You leave a crumb from your own pocket beside the loaf and exit. Outside, the town is silent, but it's not a silence of absence. It's a silence of balance, of things in their place, of a truce that doesn't need ink. You walk down to the sewers, not into them, just to the edge. You sit on the stone lip and listen. A sound rises, not water. Voices, faint, harmonized. Not words, not melody, just presence. You whisper, "We've changed." The echo answers, "You've returned." You walk back into the upper town where the nobility once lived. These houses are mostly abandoned now. But something, has taken over the garden at the edge. You kneel beside it. Rats move through it like caretakers, tending, digging, planting. You see tiny sprouts pushing through soil. Beans, fennel, clover. Each mound marked with a pebble. Each pebble marked with the spiral. You ask aloud, what grows in forgotten places? And you already know the answer. Memory. Memory grows. You continue walking. The streets feel alive beneath your feet, like you're walking the back of some enormous sleeping animal. You reach the bridge and look down at the water. It glistens gold from the light. On a passing raft, another doll floats. But this one is different. It's holding something. A map. Drawn on a scrap of cloth with ink made from soot and wine. You lean closer as it drifts past. The map is not of your town. It's of another. And below it, written in careful script. Next. You understand. This isn't a miracle. It's a migration. You pass the church again, now open to the sky. Rats gather at the altar. A new priest presides. You don't know his name. He doesn't wear robes. He wears silence. And when he raises his hands, the congregation doesn't kneel. They listen. You walk past the smithy. Inside, the tools are polished, stacked neatly. The forge has been relit, not by flame but by breath. Tiny bellows, crafted from bladder and reed, pump in rhythm. The anvil glows. No one stands at it. And yet, it works. You touch the stone and feel warmth, not heat. Hope. You make your way home slowly. At your door, another offering. A thimble, a nut, a toothpick carved into a flute. You pick it up. Hold it to your lips. Blow. A single high note. A window shutter opens down the road. A candle flickers on. A tail vanishes into shadow. You smile. Inside, you sit at your table. Add the thimble to your collection. The doll now wears a sash made from hair. Your hair. You don't remember giving it. But you feel lighter. You light a candle. It flares blue, then settles. You sit in silence and think about legacy. Historians call this era the Age of Recovery. But recovery is only half the truth. This was not just about healing. It was about handover, the surrender of illusion, the rise of something older, something deeper. You lie down, not to sleep, to listen, because the sound is back, from beneath the floorboards, from the cracks in the wall, from the spiral behind your eyes. And this time, it speaks clearly. The world is not yours alone. You whisper, "We know." And the city sighs. With gratitude. With memory. With peace. It's the smell that wakes you. Not fire, not rot, not rain. But cinnamon. You sit up blinking in the amber dawn and realize it's coming from everywhere. From beneath doors, under stones, through vents and seams in the wall. It's not overwhelming. It's intentional. You step outside, barefoot. The stones are warm already, and the street is coated in a fine powder. Pale. Fragrant. Someone, or something, has dusted the town in spice. A man passes, nods. He's got smudges of the powder under his eyes like war paint. He doesn't speak, just nods again and moves on. You trail your fingers along the wall as you walk. It vibrates slightly, not like machinery, like breath. You turn a corner and find a rat waiting on the step of the old printing house. It's sitting upright beside a stack of folded cloths, each printed with a new symbol. Not the spiral, something beyond the spiral. A sun, but made of bones. You kneel and touch the edge of one cloth. It's warm. The rat doesn't move. You whisper, "Are we changing again?" It blinks, once, then walks into the building through a gap in the door. You follow. Inside, the old printing press, once broken, now humming, has been repaired. Not with nails, with thread, with bone, with care. Pages lie scattered on the floor, diagrams, lists. Some in your language, some not. One sheet reads, "When the surface forgets, the underneath remembers." You pocket it. Outside again, you find a crowd gathered in the square, silent, looking up. The bell tower. There's movement at the top. Not human. A procession of rats, each carrying a thread. They're weaving it into the frame of the tower. A shroud? No. A net, a catcher. You hear a girl beside you murmur, "They're catching dreams before they fall." You don't know what it means, but it makes sense. The sky shifts. Clouds twist into new shapes, familiar ones. Spirals, circles, symbols, and something else. A shape you've seen before. That low chair. The one from the square. It's empty now, but you realize it's not meant to be occupied. It's meant to be remembered. You walk toward the garden, the living one. It's grown. Beans climb up polished bones planted as stakes. Mint and sage coat the air. A woman hums as she prunes. She wears a crown made of thorns and rat tails, woven neatly. You greet her. She nods. "First, they cleared the rot," she says. "Now they plant what can last." You ask, "And what about us?" She smiles. "If you're quiet, you'll be allowed to stay." You leave the garden and pass a boy etching something into the cobblestones. You lean closer. A timeline, not of kings, of tunnels. A history that predates roads. He carves it with a nail and murmurs dates that don't exist in your calendar. One line ends with, "The great listening begins." You say nothing. You just listen. Further along, you see a woman standing in a shallow basin, pouring water over her head. Around her, rats watching. When she finishes, she raises her hands. They nod. Not mimicry. Recognition. You realize what's happening. Rights are being passed. Not human to animal. The other way around? And not everyone is allowed. You hear screaming down a nearby alley. You run. A man is on the ground, eyes wide, clutching his stomach. No wounds. Just fear. Above him, 3 rats. Watching. Judging. You move to help him. But the moment passes. He gets up and runs. The rats stay. You ask, "What did he do?" No one answers. But you understand. He didn't listen. You return to your home. There's a new mark above the door. Not the spiral. The sunbone. It means safe. You enter. Your table is set. 3 cups. One for you. One for them. And one for something not yet here. You sit. Pour water. Add a sprig of mint. You don't speak. You just wait. And soon there's a rustle. A paw. A shadow. And then nothing. Just presence. Historians searching these ruins centuries from now will find only fragments. Symbols. Odd arrangements of furniture. writings about rats and spirals. They'll call it myth, or hysteria, or plague-induced madness. But they'll be wrong. It wasn't madness. It was merging, a reconnection between what walks below and what builds above. A reminder that the rats were never our pests. They were our mirror. And now the mirror is whole again. The city no longer speaks in words. It speaks in movement, in rhythm, in scent and smoke, and the flick of a tail disappearing around a corner just as you arrive. You no longer ask questions. You observe. And through observing, you understand. At dawn, the bells ring. Not by hand. By tail, by claw, by ritual. The peals are light, scattered, asymmetrical, yet somehow precise. A code for those who know how to feel the pauses. You rise, as always, without alarm. Dress simply. Place your offerings. One crumb, one hair, one pebble. You exit your home to find the street already swept. No humans did it. But it's swept just the same. You step onto the spiral that now begins at your doorstep. And walk it. It winds past the bakery, now a temple. Past the square, now a school. Past the church, now an open mouth, whispering to the sky. No one speaks anymore unless they must. But when they do, it's gentle, measured, in alignment with the pulse beneath the city. Today you're heading to the well, the one sealed months ago. It's open now. Not broken, blessed. A spiral carved around the rim, ropes strung with beads and bones. Beneath it, the scent of stone and soil and something deeper. A rat sits beside it, washing its face. You nod. It nods back. You've seen this rat before. In dreams. In processions. In memory. It's the first one that followed you. Or led you. You reach into your pocket and place a thimble at the base of the well. The rat touches it. Accepts it. You've passed the test, though you never knew when it began. Further down the road, you find a gathering. Not a crowd. Not a ceremony. Just presence. People and rats together. Sitting. Breathing. Looking toward the old wall where children have painted a new mural. A spiral transforms into a tree. Each branch ends in a paw print. A handprint. A crown. A tunnel. A question mark. And at the very top, a sun drawn as a single eye. No one's explaining it. They don't have to. You understand. You walk to the edge of the docks. Rafts continue to come and go. No one controls them. No one owns them. They carry gifts. Bones, bread, buttons, charcoal sketches. One raft drifts in with something odd. A mirror. Cracked, fogged, framed in rat teeth. You look into it and see yourself, but older, not aged, wiser, still, balanced. Behind your reflection, hundreds of small shapes, watching, not judging, just witnessing. You blink. The shapes vanish. You make your way up the hill where the air thins and the houses become fewer. At the top, the old mayor's house. It's changed. Its doors are open. Its windows covered in woven vines. The throne is gone. In its place, a circle of stones, each bearing a gift. You add your own, your final offering. The pebble you've carried since the barn. You lay it down and hear the whisper again. You remember. You nod and walk home. As you descend the hill, the town no longer feels like a town. It feels like a body. A breathing, pulsing body with tunnels for veins and rituals for memory. You are no longer its visitor. You are its organ. You lie down as dusk settles. You leave your door open. You leave your lamp unlit. You close your eyes and wait for the rhythm. It comes. As always. Feet in the wall. Voices in the drain. But this time, something more. A presence. Sitting beside your bed. Small. Silent. You don't look. You just know. It touches your hand. And you sleep. Not like before. This is not sleep. This is surrender. This is trust. Historians still argue whether rats ever ruled the city. They debate evidence, artifacts, scattered records of strange behavior, and sudden calm. But they'll never agree on what you now know. The rats didn't rule. They reminded. They showed us what happens when we forget our place, and what waits below, patient, ancient, prepared. Because the kingdom was always here, beneath your feet, and you were always just a guest. Until now. And now, you're still. The candlelight has faded, and even the sounds of the walls have quieted. Not because they're gone, but because they're resting too. You lie beneath a roof that once separated you from the oldest parts of the world and now connects you to them. Everything you feared has become familiar. Everything you ignored has taken shape. You're not walking through history anymore. You're resting inside it. The spiral is complete. The thread has looped back to its beginning. No more scratching. No more whispered warnings. No more frantic signs. Just a hush. A balance. A city that breathes with you now, not in spite of you. The rats are quiet. The streets are clean. The bone throne has been dismantled, its pieces scattered like seeds. You don't need to understand everything. You don't even need to remember everything. Just this. You're safe. You've been heard. And the world is older and softer than anyone told you. So let go of your thoughts now. Let the spiral carry them. Let the little paws take them gently into the dark. And sleep. You've earned it.